You're welcome to Business Daily on Trust TV. I'm your host, Chamunda Beng. Let's talk numbers. We're starting off with the stock market as of 6 a.m. this morning. You're welcome back. Yes, today we are going to be venturing into oversaturated markets and how entrepreneurs can actually stand out in those markets. Now, when we talk about oversaturated markets is when a particular market has basically met all the demands of the populace. So everything has already been attended to, and basically every single idea that you could actually come up in that sector or in that market has already been come up with. But you do have to think deeper to come up with something extra. But anyway, let's take a look at some of the most popular markets in Nigeria, and this is in no particular order. Now, with a youthful population, smartphones, online banking, and internet access, Nigeria's e-commerce spending is estimated at $12 billion and is projected to reach $75 billion by 2025. Now, there's a very interesting graph here, and you take a look at it, and basically it breaks down all of the areas that has actually, prospered or, made some certain amount of waves in the e-commerce sector. So we have electronics and media, we have fashion, we have food and personal care, we have furniture and appliances, toys, hobbies, and DIYs. These are all things that have actually made waves in the e-commerce sector itself, or the e-commerce market. And then we move on to agriculture in Nigeria. So we have about 70% of Nigerians involved in different categories of agriculture. And the sector contributed 22.13% of Nigeria's GDP. And yes, we do have another graph here that actually shows the way it has grown. That is agriculture in Nigeria, the way it has grown within the country. So it's moving from 2019 down to 2021. The unfortunate part is that, it's basically up and down. So there are parts where it reaches up to 30%, like Q3 of 2020, and it drops down by Q4 of 2024. So it drops down to 26.95%. And right now, it's at 22.13%. That's agriculture's contribution to Nigeria's GDP. And we also have the fashion market in sub-Saharan Africa, which is worth about $31 billion. Now, Nigeria actually accounts for 15% of that $31 billion that's generated annually, which is we're bringing in about $4.7 billion yearly from Nigeria alone. And these are just a few. Just to, take a look at it. We still have logistics, we have transportation, we have water. There are so many markets that a lot of people are involving themselves in and, growing those markets. Now, the question is, how do you really stand out? What are you doing differently to make people come to you, despite the fact that these demands are already being met by other people, other entrepreneurs, other business people out there? What are you doing as an entrepreneur to make sure that you bring sales to yourself? Now, joining me in the studio today is Agaba Wilson. Agaba, and he's a business consultant. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Oversaturated markets. Yeah. My question really is, if I was I don't know, maybe it's just coming from my own mind. If I wanted to go into a particular market, I tend to look away from markets that are oversaturated because I'm always thinking, how would I stand out? What can I actually do differently? Because when you look at these markets, the first thing that comes to mind is, there's already small shops. Everybody's doing small shops. There's already makeup. Everybody's doing makeup, soap. And, there are so many things. Why are people so drawn to oversaturated markets?
You see, basically, People are drawn to oversaturated markets because as humans, we don't like rocking the boat. We don't like
Taking
starting
those
from
risks.
the basics. You don't want to be the one reinventing the wheel. So if something is working, why not just jump into it and cash in on it? All right. And so that is why you see a woman selling akara at one junction and the next day two pop up.
Yeah.
And then it's
Because they feel
that.
like this junction is like here that the
it's
money
selling, you know. Nobody wants to do the research and say, okay, I can find my own junction, or I can find something else that goes with akara and then sell it close to her, so that when someone buys akara, maybe the person buys pap from me, you know, and then we can actually build the two businesses together, or maybe integrate it in the future and all of that. So the reason people are drawn to oversaturated markets is that they feel the real work has been done. The products are popular. So you just go there, put out your product, one of these many products, and then start talking to people about it. So you go out there and start doing liquid soap. Liquid soap is already known. You don't need to do any advert. You just need to come and tell somebody, oh, I make liquid soap. And then basically their strategy is, let's use relationships. So I know,
So
Chairman,
it's usually
you
family
buy soap
members
from
and
me.
friends, yes.
You buy soap from me. And then maybe they try to do price war, which most of them are.
So if you started off
incapable of
selling
doing.
if it was selling at 500, I can now say, well, I'll sell my own at 250.
Yes.
So that, but
Without,
are you really making anything when you
without
do that?
putting into consideration the cost of making this soap and selling it? Because there's a cost of doing business. So these are things you put into what we call the pricing process. So sometimes you undercut the market and undercut yourself for no long-term reason. Big organization can do that. They can decide to sell at less than the cost of doing that business just for other purposes. Maybe they want to get popular. They want more households to know their product, get used to the product, and then they can use that popularity to sell other products at a price. So, but when you are a small business, you gain nothing from it because most of them are short-term businesses. So you have to make money now.
Yeah, it's usually about making that quick money. Nobody's really thinking, oh, I want my company to last 50 years from now. I want my company to outlive me. You know,
it's usually something for the now. So that is why they are drawn into the market.
But you see, isn't that sort of a fallacy? Because we've seen people who venture into certain markets.
Yes.
Like now, for example, a person who is a cake maker may not necessarily actually make money as compared to people who already started those markets.
Yes.
Which is another trend I've seen with the makeup or the beauty industry itself. A lot of the people who are sitting down at the top are the people who actually started the market, and that's because they've built some sort of trust base for themselves.
Exactly.
And usually the people who are coming, especially people that are coming in the now, because they feel, oh, there's a plethora of you.
You see, the challenge is people who go into these businesses, like I've said on one of our show here, don't actually think it through. Oh, I'm looking for a job. In the meantime, I need a stopgap. And then they jump in. Oh, I'm tired of my boss. I'm leaving this job. I've saved some money. Then they jump in. All right. So at the end of the day, they don't know the psychology that comes with buying. They think that every human being will buy if they have a need from wherever they see it. I have been using the same barber for the past 4 years. There could be better ones there, closer to me. But for the fact that I trust that this guy can cut my hair in the way that I like it, he knows, you know, I don't need to tell him anything. I just go there, sit down, and he does
Give me
his job.
the usual.
Exactly. So it makes it easy for me to buy. To that extent, it's going to be difficult, extra difficult for a new barber to take me away from him. So it is like that in most industries. If you have a seamstress that is doing very well for you, that has not offended you, is delivering on time, is giving you the styles you want and all of that, you are not likely to go anywhere else very soon. No matter how much the new person tries to convince you, you begin to ask yourself, if I try to take the risk with her and give her my fabrics and she spoils it, what am I going to do? So that thought will always make you want to stay with the other person. So as a new entrant, you have to have something extra special to get people to even test what you are offering. So it's always difficult to break in. And when you break in, you keep your clients. And, you know, it is generally cheaper to keep a client you already have than to gain a new client. So you are a new entrant to a market where there are established firms. and then you don't have the financial muscle to offer something extra and to also stay afloat for the time it will need for you to be able to snatch some customers from the existing firm, then you will end up wasting your money and time.
All right, so still looking at markets, there are certain markets that have basically been, should I say, neglected, or they've not been given enough attention. And I picked out a few. And one of the markets that I actually wanted to talk about is the palm oil market itself.
All right.
So back in the 60s, I believe, yes, in the early 60s, Nigeria was actually contributing 43% of palm oil that was consumed worldwide. As a matter of fact, we are the world's largest consumer of palm oil. It's in everything.
Yeah.
Give a Nigerian palm oil, they will find a way to make a meal with it.
Exactly.
In all our soups, in our rice, in our literally everything. Apart from cereal.
Yeah.
But yes,
you won't be surprised that some people put it in their series.
Okay,
Who knows?
that's just going too far.
Who knows?
That's just going really far. But yes, we are actually one of the largest consumers of palm oil. In the 60s, we used to contribute 43% of the world's palm oil supply.
Yes.
And now other countries have actually taken over that market. Countries like Malaysia and Indonesia. Indonesia itself basically brings about 50% of palm oil.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest, it's one of their biggest exports.
And ironically, these are people that came to Nigeria to take the palm fruit and when they
and even the palm oil itself, it has so many uses. There are so many uses for the palm tree and even for the palm fruit. We use it in so many things. So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at some of the uses of the palm tree. There are so many. So you can use it for crude palm oil, of course. There's fiber, there's the kernel, there's palm cake, there's the shell. There is so much. So the trunk itself, you can use it for furniture, particle boards, feedstuff, starch, energy. So many uses for the palm itself. But for some reason, we're not fully utilizing it. Now, what is the problem with that particular market? As a matter of fact, as I was doing my research, I actually saw that the CBN said that if the palm oil market itself is given enough attention, it can make Nigeria $20 billion yearly.
You see, we were doing well. Agriculture was our mainstay before the discovery of oil in Nigeria. And once oil was discovered, the next thing, the natural human trait set in. You know, as human, we want to do little and gain as much as we can. So that is what man has set out doing since the beginning of time. That is why we have vehicles to convey us without trekking for too long. We have things to help us lift loads. We have things to help us hang them. We now have robots and all of that. So it's a natural trend for human beings to want to do little and gain so much. You will need, for you to do a palm tree farm, you will plant this year, and I think one of the fastest variety takes at least 4 years before it starts yielding. All right, so you see, you have to wait for 4 years, assuming you have one of the best varieties that produces fast, before you start production. Nobody wants that. They want to go own oil well. They want to do retailing of fuel. They want to do things in the white-collar areas and all of that because it gives you quick money. Why would you want to tie your money down for 5, 10 years before you start production and all of that? And then over time, people who were operating in the industry before also saw that the return on investment for people who are in this other industry is better than theirs. And of course, the government over time neglected the industry, and so they pulled out. And they now took their investment from all these and agro-related industries and put them in places where they can have fast and bigger ROIs. So what do we have? We have the sector going down gradually until we became a net importer of palm oil, something that we were almost the highest producer in the world before. So it's, you see, governance is a deliberate thing. But in Africa, we sort of leave it to prayers, we leave it to chance, and we leave it to a lot of frivolities. But governance is a deliberate thing. We need to have a 100 years plan, and then it needs to be broken down into 10 years, and then it can be broken down into 1 year, and then we have quarterly and all of that. This is developed, consciously and purposively to deliver certain indices as we go along. And then the citizens are carried along so that they know the impact of their individual behaviors, individual doings on what the nation intends to achieve. That is when people own the country. But we left everything to chance, and everything went the natural way. The universe operates by principles. That is why for every action, there's equal and opposite reaction. I think that is one of Newton's law of motion also. Now, if you don't make input, there can be no output. So you can't expect nature to do it for you.
Yeah.
We did not incentivize the sector. And by default, human beings want to move up. We compete all the time. And so we invent strategies to compete better. These people who are producing palm oil go to the same market as the man who has oil well, as the man who is importing fuel, as the man who is doing other quick jobs. So the man knows that he will become poorer than all these people if he doesn't close shop here and go there to do what they are doing. So they move up. What the government now needs to do is to work its way back. You need to give incentives. An incentive that provides advantage enough for one to want to go back there. If I am taking a loan from you today to start a palm tree farm, that loan, I need to get a good moratorium because I'm not going to start producing palm oil till the next 4 or 5 years. Within that time, how am I going to pay you the interest? And then on the other side, they are looking at the inflation rate. If the inflation is going up, then interests have to go up in order for the money not to lose its value. And if you put more interest for me, I am losing value as well because it's the same money you gave me that I have.
Yeah.
And then I am paying more. So we have to find a way to bridge that gap. So maybe some government intervention. I think I'm aware the government made efforts to do some of such intervention in the past. I don't know what became of it. Most times we have lofty policies. We have very, very robust and comprehensive plans, but at implementation we always fail.
Yeah.
And that is because we have based many things on federal character. We have based many things on sentiment. We have based many
Rather
things
than
on
the actual application of
rather
it
than
itself.
bringing the people who can actually do this. We need to go for competence and character over these other trivial things we are looking at. I mean, when it comes to our personal lives, we don't bother about ethnicity, we don't bother about religion and region. But when it comes to our national life, we want to put that forward.
All right, so still on agriculture itself, as I said earlier on, agriculture is responsible for 22.13% of Nigeria's GDP as itself. And 70% of Nigerians are actually involved in the agricultural market itself. But the problem is the fact that it is small.
Yes.
A lot of the farmers that we have there are small scale farmers. We don't have the very, large farmers with all the technology and all the technical know-hows and all of that. So what can we do in that area to make that improvement and encourage more people to start producing at a larger scale? Because for a lot of people, it's more, my personal consumption, or let me just farm these small tubers of yam and take it to the market and make my small profits and, eat for the day, things like that.
All right. So generally in agriculture, the concept of economy of scale comes in very handy. The larger you produce, and if you are able to efficiently and effectively manage it, the more likely you will be able to reduce your cost. Now, but the problem is we have the issue of the land tenure system, how people own land. So you see somebody who does not have the capacity to farm, owns a large expanse of land, and the one who has the capacity to farm has no land. And then it's difficult to broker a deal between the landowner and the farmer, because what usually ensues is the farmer who leases the land over time tends to want to lay claim to the land, and then there are issues here and there. So these fears exist.
Yeah.
And then there's what we call the break-even point for every business. So you are doing certain number of hectares of a particular crop. It won't make sense for you to go and bring all the mechanized equipment you would need to do this farming. Because at the end of the day, you will never be able to sell at the going price and make any money. So what I think that the government needs to work on is clustering. So we have a cluster of farms, 20, 30 people, 100 people, it could be 1,000 people. So you get a large expanse of land on lease, whatever arrangement you can make. I think we did something like that for a client before who wanted to do some government private public partnership arrangement to bring in experts to come and improve the agricultural system. So what you want to do is get a large expanse of land, get all the equipment to be there, and then a large number of farmers lease land there, and then you can use this equipment to do the operation for them. They harvest, and it is also possible for uptake from one particular location. You know, and when this uptake happens, each person gets their own money and they can pay for the services that have been rendered. So it can be a conglomeration of the equipment manufacturers, input suppliers, people who provide the services, who can use the equipment, who can apply the chemicals where they need to, and all of that. And then people who provide advisory services, agricultural consultants. They tell you, this crop needs more water, it needs more of this, it needs more of that, and all of that. So all the facilities can be put in place, because the problem of agriculture starts from input, equipment, to the farm practices, to the harvesting. We lose so much when we harvest. That's a topic for another day that we'll discuss. We'll lose a lot during harvest. And then there's the issue of logistics, which includes the transportation, packaging, warehousing, and all of that. So until you are able to solve the entire value chain problem, you can't actually be able to encourage people to go into agriculture in a large scale.
All right, so I also want to talk about the mining market itself. Now, back in 2020, it contributed to about 7.42% of Nigeria's GDP, but that figure is largely attributed to COVID-19 itself, because as of 2021, it rose to 7%. So, of course, we know that there is a large potential from that market itself, but it is facing some problems. So what are the problems that are currently facing the mining market itself that might discourage people from venturing into the market?
If you look at mining, if you want to mine at a commercial scale, you need equipment. So that initial investment is there. And then, just like you have the cattle rearers and the crop farmers clashing, there's also the issue of crop farmers and miners. Your mining activity is going to necessarily interrupt farming in some places, not all places anyway. And then ownership of land, our community system, and all of that. You invest in equipment, come to a place and start your operations, and then after you have settled maybe the federal government, you have settled state, you have settled local government, some other people pops up and say you won't commence work until you have settled this. This goes on and on and on, and people become frustrated, pack up the equipment, sell it at scrap value, and get out of the country. So we have to, like I said, most of these things boils down to the government to lay down the framework to help startup businesses to actually start up. Because most of these people get killed most of these businesses get killed at the very basic state, even before they take off. So the issue of mining is suffering the same thing, just like many other businesses. A lot of people to settle, and then there is no comprehensive way of doing these things so that you can be sure that, okay, I'm done with this, let's face our operation. Because there's still cost that you're going to incur in the mining process. There is going to be cost in making this product suitable for and package it for the market. And you are paying people who will work with you. And there's another bigger issue, like I mentioned to you before. We have gradually degenerated in human resource, character, and skills.
Okay.
It is very difficult for you to find people who are competent and honest, willing to work with you.
So there's a trust issue.
There's a trust issue. So every small business fails because the owner is not there, and needs some people to do some of the work for him, or it is too large for the owner to be everywhere. And before you know it, pilfering, lackadaisical attitude to work, unnecessary strife, unnecessary conflict within the system, and then you see people trying to cut corners, trying to take business away from the organization, people trying to shortchange the system with even procurement and all of this. Before you know, the whole thing comes aground. So you see a lot of organizations in this country going to bring in their workers from other countries. It's not a good thing. I don't want to start mentioning countries and all of that now. But they will tell you they are more reliable, they are more trustworthy, they are more committed to work and all of that. So we have to also look at our human resource aspect. We will think that it's not a problem now, but it's going to be the bigger problem. It is already the biggest problem. It is the reason most of the micro businesses pack up. So we have to find a system that works. Maybe the government can come up with a system that can actually onboard micro and small businesses, and then have a system to actually identify their workers. So if somebody stole from my organization and crumbled it, when you want to hire that person in the future, you go to that database and see the person's antecedent. Maybe something like that. This idea can be refined and can be looked into until we are able to fix these things, to force our people to behave well. Then over a long period, maybe it becomes our culture again. We won't be able to grow the economy using small, medium, and small scales and medium enterprises. We won't be able to grow the private sector. And we need, when you want to develop the economy, you need the life of your people to improve. For the life of your people to improve, they have to have access to good jobs. But now you are producing in your economy, and then the only money you get is the tax that that company gets. The life of your people are not improved because this organization goes somewhere else to bring people to come and work for them instead of your people.
All right.
So it's a huge issue that we need to look into as fast as we can.
All right, so at the end of the day, everything boils down to the incentives and policies that the government actually creates for these businesses out there. There are quite a few markets that have been untapped that are, you know, they have very little exploration within those markets. There are quite a few, like the IT market, that too has been, you know, unexplored. We also have a drop in vocational skills, and that's, you know, mainly for the artisans. We have the painters, the mechanics, and all of that, and that's largely attributed to public perception, and hopefully that will change the moment that an entrepreneur who can actually take these things and refine it and turn it into something bigger. The beauty about being an entrepreneur is being able to identify problems and creating a solution to those problems, and then you make money off of it. At the end of the day, it's all about the money, isn't it? Well, we do have to round up now because we run out of time, but I would like to thank my guests in the studio. Thank you so much for Mr. Wilson for being a part of the show, and to all our viewers out there, thank you so much for watching. Come back again for more Business Daily. Once again, my name is Chamunda Beng. Let's talk numbers.